This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. But forget New Brunswick, because here on February the 4th, 2024, we're just 10 days away from Valentine's Day. And my background, although it's backwards, I love Toronto. And of course, Toronto is what I consider my real home. So, with that aside, I have a wonderful guest on here today. In fact, as part of the interview, we are celebrating the 45th anniversary of The Jerk, where Steve Martin made his feature film debut. Yes, playing Navin Johnson. And during this 45th anniversary, we have one of the fellows that was conning him out of tires and money. And, he was in the car with Mr. Newt Bond because he's going to vouch for him. Folks, I have the absolutely hilarious, very talented Pepe Serna. How do you do, Pepe?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I love your background. Is that blue or green there on the wall?
That's like like a turquoise green. Yeah, and that's my artwork up there. My
That's your artwork.
African
You do
sunset.
art?
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh,
do. I
beautiful.
do a lot of art. It's a lot. I have a lot of pieces all over. Yeah, in my book, you'll see, unfortunately for Canada, it's too expensive to ship.
Yeah,
I shipped
beautiful.
a book and it was like something like 40 to $50 just to ship it. So,
Wow. And you got that couch behind you. That's a beautiful room. You're a very creative individual.
oh yeah, no, this is yeah, this is a fun house. This is this is my my Rastafarian Picasso, and
Oh,
that's another
beautiful.
couple. That's a guy, and then these are my zebra nuns, and then I
Nice.
have the dancers here, and the sweethearts here. You mentioned Valentine's Day, 14 days away, and uh, and this is a dude up here. I'm just kicking back. But anyway, yeah, in my book, you go to pepeserna.net. You can check out the website and see the artwork and um, the workshops that I've been doing for years, and it's a lot of fun. And now that the documentary will be premiering February 21st on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play. So yeah, it'll be available. It's only so I hope everybody jumps on it the first day to give it some algorithms going there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to take a trip back and ask how you got started in the film industry and coming into the business.
I got started in the film business in 1950 when I was 6 years old. We moved into a new neighborhood, and the doctor lived next door. It was his daughter's birthday, and he invited us over for her birthday party, and he filmed it on his 8 millimeter camera. So about a month or two later, in the backyard, he put up a projector, and I got to see myself on film. And I had already been a stage actor because I had jumped up on my godfather's boxing ring when I was 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved attention. And so at 3, I knew. I mean, I didn't know that I was a stage actor, but I knew. I loved uh, people laughing at me and laughing at my antics. And so then when I saw myself on film, I said, then from then on, I knew that I had seen all my favorite. My mother used to take us to all the Mexican movies, and so
Hmm.
in Spanish, and so I I knew I was always an actor since I was 3. Everything I did. So, but then at 19 is when I did my first uh, real movie where I was the star, and I was a bullfighter in 1960 years ago, 1964, and the it was destroyed in a hurricane in Texas in Corpus Christi in '67. So I never got to see it.
Oh,
But anyway, that was my first time, and then it's just a long story. Went to work at the World's Fair in 1965 as a barker at the Moroccan Pavilion. Got to meet people from all over the world. Then I went to the Marines for 6 months, and to me, it was a 6 month acting class. So I pretended to be making a movie the whole time. So I was always in that mode, and it's been a positive thing for me to be able to just live my life as if though I'm making a movie. And just I went to Mexico after that for 2 years. Came to California the second day. My friend took me to meet my wife, and he had been in the production of Hair with me. And as a matter of fact, 10 minutes ago, we hadn't. He passed away a couple of years ago, but we'd been, uh, you know, uh, trying to Facebook his wife because Acapulco went through some a terrible hurricane, and everything was so many things were lost. But she just contacted me to let me know that everything was right. It's just the communication is hard right now. But that's within the last 10 minutes. So there are no coincidences of how things happen, that it
mhm.
happens to be. I I make everybody I meet all the situations as spirit guides. You look like a spirit guide yourself there with your bandana and mine around my neck, and yours. You got to hold those brains in there. Your imagination will explode out of those out of your ears there if you didn't have that on.
Yep, yep, I hear you. I hear you. Now, there's some films that you've done that I got to touch upon. You've got a long list of credits here, but going back to 1970 here you were in a Roger Corman production called The Student Nurses, and I was wondering what your memories were of working with Corman.
Well, actually, it was Corman's company, but
Hmm.
but it was oh God, Stephanie Rothman
Yeah,
was the
she's the director.
director.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's the one that I was working with. And my friend, when I got to Hollywood, right away we jumped into the synergy, the workshop of the committee. And the committee that I don't know if you how familiar you are with it, but they were all part of Dale Close and Second City, and which is, I mean, Canada has had some of the greatest actors ever come out of that improvisational, and Dale was the master teacher that I landed with in 1969 when I got here 55 years ago next month. And uh, so it, Don Stroud was in the group, and um, he wrote the student nurses. So he got me an interview, me and another buddy that was in the group, and so that's how I got into the union through the student nurses. But I never saw it. I've never seen the student nurses. My wife wasn't interested in seeing, you know, the
Hmm.
movie. So I don't know how I got away because a lot of people have seen it, and but it was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And of course, you did Johnny Got His Gun. Now, it was written directed by Dalton Trumbo, who, of course, had a very controversial past, you know. It's funny because I've interviewed the daughter of George Leto, and of course Dalton was one of the ones that was uh,
Blacklisted.
blacklisted, yes, along with Waldo Salt and so many others. Talk about that experience with Dalton.
Well, Dalton was incredible, but Day of the Locust was Waldo Salt that wrote that I
Hmm.
was in. So I got to work with two of the blacklisted writers, which is
Hmm.
just Dalton. I was actually playing his alter ego. I was a writer in this bakery, but they took it away from him. So I was in his cut, but they took it away and they cut my scene out of the movie. But it was just great. He was 76 then,
Hmm.
this old guy with a mustache and smoking, and he was laying down while they were doing the lighting for me, but using his body, Dalton Trumbo's body, while they were putting makeup on me, and he's directing me from the floor.
Hmm.
It was just, I mean, it was just so great. And how he had gone off to Mexico after he was blacklisted. And when they were coming back to the United States, that his son heard the national anthem and he said, I like ours much better. He was talking about the Mexican because he was just a little, just that's the song that he recognized from, when he was in school. So it was kind of funny that I don't think they were there that long, but he was just a fabulous guy. I happened to live in Eagle Rock. I moved to Eagle Rock after that, and that's where he had lived. It was in between Glendale and Pasadena, California. Eagle Rock was, and
Oh,
it's
I have a
actually
friend that
a
lives in
rock.
Glendale.
Oh, oh, do you? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a rock. It's a rock along the freeway there, the 134, that looks like an eagle is flying out of the rock. And during, I forgot what, the Boxer Rebellion or something, they trained there, coming down the rope off that rock. The soldiers, I was told. So yeah, so he was fantastic. And then I'll jump over to Waldo Salt, like I mentioned, who was also a blacklisted
Hmm.
writer,
Yeah.
and he came over to my apartment and had a couple of drinks with his wife and stuff when I was doing Day of the Locust, and he was
Yeah,
just,
just gonna
you
touch
can
on that.
imagine, you can imagine, these guys are the salt of the earth. Just I didn't know anything about the blacklist or how important incredible writers they were or anything. But I knew that I really liked them, that they were really nice to me and treated me like an equal, which is,
Hmm.
it's not rocket science. I mean, we're all equal. uh, but it's amazing when, in retrospect, to say, wow, man, and then my first Western was with Hal Wallace and Henry Hathaway and Gregory Peck. Was in the Western 8 years after he had gotten the Academy Award for To Kill a Mockingbird. And here's Henry Hathaway, who had directed all these movies, and Hal Wallace, Casablanca. He was one of the greatest producers of all time. And it's just, and I landed right when I got to Hollywood. I was within 14 months, I was making movies. But I felt like I was the most trained actor that had ever hit Hollywood because I had been an actor I knew since I was 3. So I didn't know anybody, but I wasn't a trained actor in that sense, like real training. I just knew that that's what I was my life and what I loved to do and what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And So it's interesting to when you meet people like that you're not even really aware of who they are. How can you? You know, you walk the streets and you run into people, you don't know who they are. All I do a lot of motivational workshops, improvisational workshops,
Hmm.
and it's trying to let everybody, like every single member of your audience listening, to let them know that they are the shit. I mean, they can make it happen. They are making it happen. Everybody says, "Oh, if only I could. If somebody would give me a helping hand. If I could just." No, you're people are already doing it. They don't even know how incredible they are already at whatever stage of the game you're in. You know, I listen to Howard Stern all the time, and he
Hmm.
said there's no way he could be starting off now because every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a show like yours. And not, I'm not saying that with disrespect because
Hmm.
it takes a lot to do it. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, I could do that." Well, go ahead, do it. You know, it takes organization. You have to know. You have to be. You know, I mean, to get your guest. I mean, you've been. I don't even know how long it was that we've been in conversations, 3 months or something,
Yeah.
trying to make this happen. And
Hmm.
most people say, "Oh, you know, screw it, forget him," you know, but you're dogged about what you're doing, and
Yeah.
and you love it, and you do it for the love of it, not because you're going to have the, you know, you're going to make $1 million, but that wouldn't be bad, would it?
Well, I don't make money at this at all, but I do this because I enjoy doing it. It makes watching some of these movies extra special, and I see you on screen. So, um,
How did you get into movies? How did you?
actually, I work as a cleaner. I used to work at my family's spring water business, and I was there for 19 years, but I did a I still volunteer at the campus radio station here, and I've been there since 2005. And I was reviewing movies at the station, and then through a former acquaintance, I ended up with an interview with Tommy Wiseau from The Room. And that experience was so surreal. It was like, how can I do this again? And that was in 2015. So it was like, since then, I'm now up over 800 interviews. So,
Well,
and this has led to me going to conventions. And as I mentioned, I got I love Toronto background behind me because I never traveled until 2017 when one of my guests invited me to assist her at a horror film convention. And it was just so surreal. So, I've never made money at this. This is just something I just really enjoy doing. It's just a lot of fun, and it allows me to celebrate movies that I enjoy. Which I got a couple of your films right here on Blu-ray that we're going to be talking about here momentarily. But but that's where the fun comes for me. And I was born in the early 1970s, so there's a lot of these that's like I remember a little bit of the 70s. And of course, you had mentioned Day of the Locusts and we got to touch upon, of course, Car Wash. Talk about an interesting movie.
yeah, yeah, that was fabulous. Yeah, that was really incredible.
What were your memories of that?
Well, you know, it was the first movie where they actually used the music in the movie. I mean, they pre-recorded the music, so we would have the music going on at the car wash, and then they would cut off the music, and we'd continue the scenes, but in the groove of the music, you know. And that was Leon Whitfield. There was the
Mhm.
producer of Rolls Royce. He came one Monday. He came. We were at work, and he says, "Pepe," he said, "I saw a movie this weekend." that you weren't in, because I was in so many movies at that time, which is really amazing because it was like I never thought of it like that. I've always, been humble about it and appreciate and stuff, but then it really makes me think, wow, man, how how did I get to do that? How have I been in 100 movies? And some of the classic movies, even though I didn't have a big part, but once I did my documentary and I became the star of my documentary, now I've become the star of everything I've ever done for those people. And a lot
Mm.
of even Latinos don't know my name. They recognize my face, but not my name. But now it's about the art, my artwork, and before I was selling my art and giclées and stuff, but now it's with the book, the memoir, and the documentary. I want to get it into the schools because my biggest passion is running the improvisational workshops where I can get people to do incredible things because I came from the playground and I know how to play. I'm always it's 24/7 for me wherever I am. If I'm at the mall and it's the food court, I'll I'll jump into a conversation parents are having with their kids, and just you know just go. It's very funny right now. It's kind of surreal because your face is coming out of that T-shirt, and it's like it's your face is coming out of that T-shirt. It's pretty cool. It's a
Mm.
cool shot.
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
maybe you ought to do one like that. You ought to take a picture of it, and you ought to take a picture of that with your face coming out of there because that's cool.
yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and
Now,
it's improv is yes and adjustment, right? So that you agree with what somebody tells you and you make it positive, then the conversation continues. But when you say yes, but is positive, negative, you cut somebody off at the knees and you don't encourage them to go on with the conversation because you're saying, no, this is the way we're going to do it. And boom. So, anyway, I'll let you, you were going to say something.
well, I was gonna say, Car Wash had two of our greatest comedians with George Carlin and Richard Pryor. I mean, and
Oh God, I'm drawing a blank. The crazy, with running around with a bottle of urine. Um,
oh,
uh, Corey, Professor Corey.
that yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but Richard Pryor, George Carlin, two of the they were the two of the top five
Yeah.
for sure.
And of course, you got to work with that wild and crazy guy, Steve Martin. I think this movie, even to this day, is so hilarious. Steve Martin and his little dog, Shithead. I love this movie. I think it still makes me laugh. And of course, that gas station scene that you're at, where you guys are just conning him out of money, you know, uh, and I'm
You
thinking
know that,
too,
huh?
I was gonna say, you are my 10th guest this year. You did win a free oven mitt today.
That's cool. It's yeah, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to be, part of something like that to work with. And he's a very serious guy, man. He's like he would go from the set to his motorhome and he never stops working. I mean, he's you know, uh it was and Carl Reiner, I mean, to work with, I mean, to
Oh,
be
Carl, one
directed
of the
by Carl
greats.
Reiner, one of the greatest, man. One, I mean, just phenomenal, you know, to have that. And then and you started it off with, with I'll vouch for him. and that was a line that I improvised. Yeah, he's Mr. Yeah, it's Mr. Nussbaum, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that thing of being able to play in the scene and bring it to life, because a lot of improvisers uh, want to be funny and want it to be about something that they're going to say that's funny,
Hmm.
but it's not funny unless it's about the scene, unless it fits in the scene, and that's where a lot of people make a mistake, is trying to show off somehow, with, oh, I've got a clever line here. No, it's got to be within the moment, within the reality of what's going on.
Do you
Life is funny.
do you still have that hat?
No, but I've got one kind of like it.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was gonna say is that I don't know if you ever been around any real cholos, any real, but guys, the car guys, the low riders like that, they're not, they're nothing like, they're nothing like that character. You know, I don't know that I would have hired me for that part. You know,
Oh, I'm glad
uh,
he did.
yeah, me too, man. It was kind of interesting because I looked at it and I said, wow, I was born because I'm kind of a flamboyant kind of I'm guy, the way I dress and everything,
Mhm.
and and so that's my style, but I wasn't the one who put it together. I mean, the wardrobe person did, and for her to pick that for me, those wraparound clear glasses and the hat, and the whole attitude wasn't like a Mexican American a car lowrider. Trinidad, my buddy, they're sitting next to me. He was from Texas too. He passed away in '88. Unfortunately, he was such a great actor. Trinidad Silva, man, he was great, man. He was the real deal, man. He was, the face, the whole thing was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And another thing about car wash, Emmett Walsh, we were at 20th Century Fox for an interview, and then at that time, it's different situations, but we were out in the hallway, sitting in chairs, waiting to go into an office, and he comes walking in, and and I'm looking into the office where he walks into, and he goes in and he's looking around the office, and just like didn't even talk to the secretary. He just checking out the office, the walls and looking around. And she's looking at him, says, "Can I help you?" He said, "No, that's all right. I'm just came in here. I'm just thinking about buying the place." He was, I mean, it was hysterical. He just, that line coming into, he was going to buy 20th Century Fox. He was just checking out the rooms. But I don't know what, he didn't tell him who he was. He was coming in for, I'm not sure he did sooner or later, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and you did Honeysuckle Rose. Now you get to work with you had Willie Nelson in that movie, and then you had the couple of very beautiful women and Diane Cannon and Amy Irving. Any stories from this?
No, I know that we were in the hotel. I forgot what scenes we were shooting, but Amy was in there, and then because she was engaged to Steven Spielberg at the time, and so she got on the phone, and we were on the phone while she was talking to Steven Spielberg. But she was she was just such a nice person, but you know, I don't know. It's always weird to say that they're nice people, because why shouldn't people be nice?
Hmm.
and 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 it was kind of funny because years later, I'm drawing a blank on her mother's name. I started
Priscilla
with it.
Pointer.
Yes, there you go.
Hmm.
Well, years later, I saw a baby book, my baby book, that had no pictures in it or nothing. It was just my baby book. But it said that it was made by Priscilla Pointer. And it must have been her. It must have been, and I didn't know it. I didn't see it till years after I had worked with her. But that would have been great to have said, I've got my baby book was, you made my baby book, and I never told Amy Irving either. But that was incredible. Uh, you know, those kind of situations. And then Mickey Rooney Jr. was in it, and all of Mickey Raphael, that's Willie's harmonica player, one of the greatest ever. He's still around. A lot of the other guys have passed. You know, most of the band has passed away, but Mickey Raphael, I think, is one of the last of the Mohicans from the movie that's still alive.
Well, going back to the jerk, I've had Caitlin Adams on here, and she was a fun one talking about, especially her audition for the jerk. But I've also had Nina Blackwood on here from Vice Squad. Now, this is an interesting movie, and of course Wings Howard, such an underrated actor. He was so great in this, playing the sadistic Ramrod, and of course you had Season Hubley in this, and but I had Nina Blackwood on, of course, was one of the original MTV VJs, and she was talking about being beat with the wire hanger in that famous, very, very suspenseful scene in a hotel room. And I like this film. It's brutal, but very well made movie. I could see where it inspired a lot of, especially television shows. Talk about working on this film.
Well, who Wings' son is, right?
Yeah, Cole.
Cole Hauser. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is amazing. And Season Hubley at that time was married to
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And they had a child together. Yeah. And he came on the set, and I worked with him again on Tequila Sunrise. I was cut out of the movie, but it was great being in the reading with him and stuff. But Vice Squad was really interesting because I mean it was about the whole scene on Hollywood Boulevard, and when I first got here in '69, I had a place for 6 weeks, and then I was homeless for a few months, uh, off and on for more than a few months, uh, and I was on Hollywood and Vine with a quadriplegic guy
Hmm.
who became a quadriplegic because as an 18-year-old, he was going across country to visit an aunt or something, and he got up and he got drunk someplace, and they threw him in jail, and he fell off the top rack, and he became a quadriplegic. But one of the interesting things he said to me was he says, if cars if the speed limit is only 60 miles an hour, why they make cars go 120? But he was he was coming up with all these deep thoughts, and he was still a kid. I mean, I was only 24, and he must have been 20, 21. He couldn't have been much older. I mean, much younger than me. But to have been there on those streets in 1969, and then filming Vice Squad, I don't even remember the day when I shot it, uh, but it was interesting to have been in and around those streets and watching all the stuff that was going on in those streets. But one of the interesting things was the first time I realized the cinematographer, they had to wet down the streets every night.
Yeah.
So that they get that reflection, that fantastic reflection off all those lights from the clubs and all the Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Wings was this big, tough guy. I don't know if whatever happened with his career because he was such a character. He was so real. You just never know, you know. Sometimes people are just too smart for their own good, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean literally, they're just too smart and they don't want to take any crap from anybody,
Hmm.
and they know that they can't be treated as less than who they are. And I was lucky I came from Texas and I was used to, you know, uh, having, feeling less than for being Mexican American and growing up. Although I was always an actor, so I didn't have those hangups, except that I did have them. I didn't, put on the air because I was in, I was a president of the Young Lions when I was in college, and I was always, there in front of people. But I just had this humility that's still there. That I wouldn't go into stores when I came to town if I wasn't going to buy something. And
Hmm.
my wife, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? But it was just, you know, we all have, our stupid demons for some reason or the other that we buy into. And it's only in our head, and we want to blame it on others. But I keep seeing your face out of that T-shirt. I'm not kidding. You have to make because it almost is like psychedelic. It's almost coming out of that. It's just like a hole. It's just like your face that keeps coming out of the out of that. So there's something to it.
There you go.
But yeah, and then we worked with an old Chinese man at the hotel, and that hotel was just a couple of blocks from an apartment that we used to live at, my wife and I, and before I bought my first house, and and when we moved from there to Eagle Rock, but he was kind of an herbologist, but he was a kung fu master, or some kind of martial arts. I don't know if it was kung fu. That was the terminology we knew back then.
Hmm. You know, last year we lost, I think it was last year we lost um, William Friedkin. Of course, you were in Deal of the Century. Any memories of working with William and that movie in particular?
Yes, the interesting story with Deal of the Century is that I got the movie Scarface. Right,
Hmm.
so it turns out that at the rehearsal of Scarface, I asked the assistant director that I knew from another film. I said, Where are you going to be shooting?" And he said, "Oh, New York, Santa Barbara, L.A., Miami." And I said, what are you shooting in Miami? He said, "Oh, that's not till later, till the end that we're going to shoot the chainsaw scene." I said, "Well, I'm in that scene because they only had me for 6 weeks."
Uh-huh.
So then my agent called me back and says, "No, they wanna give you 16 weeks, but they're gonna they're not gonna use you till the end of the movie again. Once we get this part in LA done." And so then they called me in for Deal of the Century, and so I was doing Deal of the Century, and they made it. They said, "Okay, I could do other movies during that time." That was part of the deal, that they were going to allow me to do other things while they didn't need me, because they weren't going to need me till the end of the movie. And so I got deal of the century. But then they something happened with somebody that they got rid of. And so the schedule conflicted of the scene that I was going to be, one of the scenes that I was going to be in. I had already shot a couple of scenes with Friedkin, and they said, no, you're going to be replaced. And I had a bunch of friends that went up for my part. And they said they were there all day. And Friedkin kept coming by and looking at him and just sneering at him, kind of. And that they said he finally came by and he told the assistant director, let these people go. I said, I'm not hiring anybody else. Pepe's gonna do this part, and we'll just wait for him to be till he's available. And here I was, just had this just because he wanted to, you know.
Hmm.
That's that was nobody was going to tell him who he could use or not use, because he's William Friedkin. And one of the reasons that he hired me, he thought that somehow I resembled Garcia Marquez. I don't know if you ever read the book. Garcia Marquez was 100 Years of Solitude. You've never heard of that book?
No.
Yeah, check it out, man. It's incredible. It's a family in Colombia, South America, and every generation has the same names as the parents, right? So for 100 years, so it goes on, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Really great. It's one of the great books. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is his name.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
So
you
anyway, so yeah,
know what was you
go ahead.
carrying? What was you saying?
No, nothing. Just
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say you were touching on Scarface there, and of course you did that the same year as Deal of the Century, and Scarface is number one. I love Brian De Palma. Dress to Kill, Sisters, Carrie. Well, he does, of course, Scarface with Al Pacino, and you are in that very violent chainsaw scene. Everybody remembers, and I just wonder if you would go into detail working with De Palma, working with Pacino, and of course doing that very ugly scene with the chainsaw.
yeah, it was that was really at the time that was the goriest scene in the history of film at the time. That that's they were touting it to be. And supposedly um, they used my arm hanging and swaying when they showed it to the ratings board,
Mm-hmm.
and they left my arm just like swinging in the shower. Totally freaked them out, and so I think they did it on purpose because they concentrated on that to take that out, and then they left all the language in, all the bad language in, because they were able to take out that scene. But I think somebody told me that it was probably done on purpose by
Mm-hmm.
De Palma to just be able to get away with the next by showing him something worse, but it was great. I mean, working with Al Pacino and being part of that, because when you work with those people, but like I said, my very first Western, my first 5 months, I did 4 feature films. 7 months, I did 4 feature films, two with Hal Wallace, with Gregory Peck, and then you work with these people, and you're not. I wasn't in awe of them. I was an actor my whole life, as far as I was concerned. Uh, in my head, it was, and probably because I wasn't a trained actor, I was an improv actor. I hadn't done that much theater, that I didn't realize, what company I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just being those characters. uh, just living it. Just how do you do it? And then I was listening to Harrison Ford last night talking to Chris Wallace, and he just said he just does it. He doesn't think it out of what am I going to do? How am I going to feel? You're just in the scene and you let it affect you. You're in the moment. You let it affect you with how the other actor, what they're giving you, what the scene calls
Hmm.
for. And it's not, you just have to trust that you can do that and not, and just be prepared with all the dialogue and everything to know that you can just be, like I said, just be in the moment. And that's what improv is looking at the other person and concentrating on them instead of thinking about what am I going to do? What am I going to say? How am I going to act, to attract attention here? Because it's not about that. It's not about attracting attention. It's just about being as real as you can be.
Yeah. And you got to work with De Palma again with the Black Dahlia, which was the last film, I believe was the last film for William Finley, if I remember correctly, who worked with De Palma a lot. I saw Black Dahlia in theaters. I saw actually a screening of Scarface in theaters as well, although I didn't see it in '83 when it came out, but I did eventually see it in the big screen. But I did see Black Dahlia when it came out in theaters. And, you know, um, what was it like reuniting with De Palma for that film?
It was great because I went in and zoot suiters. I have a one-man show called El Ruco Chuco Cholo Pachuco, a zoot suiter. And they were, they were teenagers. They were in their 20s, early
Hmm.
20s. And the Black Dahlia I did when I was in my 60s. And I was, and it was because he wanted to kill me again. I mean, and I was in I died. It
That is
wasn't
always the
in the
case.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't, it didn't, the scene was cut out of the movie, but they killed me in an electric chair.
Hmm.
And I had done research on the electric chair and how people died and yada yada yada. So when that they even after they get electrocuted, that the spasms are still going on, and so I I ripped the chair out of the ground. It was bolted into the ground, and then he said, "No, just just die." you know, don't give me all that. Rock and roll stuff. Just die. So so I did the scene again, and I had just read, can't think of the author's name, but a book on the way to Germany. My wife travels with me everywhere I go. But I was reading a book, William Dreyer, and it
Hmm.
was about, when you do something, don't don't wait for applause or for recognition. Oh, that was good or any of that, because you know what you've done. So just know, don't expect any kudos. So then I died, and so I'm just sitting there, and then I finally opened my eyes, because it felt really great, and everybody was gone. They had moved on to the next set, and that the fact that I had read that book on the way to Germany, on the way there, it was in Bulgaria, but we went through Germany. Uh, that made me think, oh, I already did, you don't need, it was just funny. And then there was nobody there. Finally, a guy came and unhooked me from the chair
Hmm.
and bolted it back in. But it was great, man. Bulgaria, you can't separate. I don't separate the movies from the reality of the life that's going on there. And especially because I, next month is 55 years since I met my wife. and
Oh,
we've only been
wow.
apart 22 days. 22 days in 55 years. So we're together all the time. So I get to enjoy it through her eyes. Actors, you work, you stay in your room, and unless you're self-motivated and want to go out and see the countryside or the city or anything, most of them aren't going to do it. And with me, it's all about, well, now I get to see everything through my wife's eyes and what she loves. And she loves decor and loves to see people and things. And so we just jump on the bus and take it to the end of or wherever it's going. So we went to Istanbul after I went to Bulgaria twice. So after the second time, I had all the time I wanted, so we went to Istanbul for 10 days. And I would jump on the bus and just go to the end of the route and come back and go a different way. That's what we do everywhere we go, whether it's metro or buses or whatever. It's just fascinating. But we got to the end of this one route, and we're going down where the Bosphorus, and I didn't know that much about history. That Istanbul is right there, and across the Bosphorus River is Asia. And there's a bridge going to Asia that we went over. I say, I don't. You just don't think of that if you're not a scholar, not even a scholar if you haven't done your homework, and no history. But we went to the end of one route, and then they said, no more, no more buses coming back. And we're like, oh no, it was going to start getting dark. And we didn't know that that was the end, that was the last bus going there. And there were no more buses leaving. And this guy, tall guy, and his hands were, he was a worker. His hands were dirty from the work he had been doing and whatever it was. And he just looked over and he says, motion for us to follow him. And he just said, metro, metro. So we're going across. There's always like, I'm very trustworthy. But she's a woman, she's a Scorpio and a snake. So she's smart. She's like aware of everything that's going on. And so she's 5'2", and this guy is like 6'4", long steps, but she was way out ahead of us. We were across the field that was at least half a mile in length, and there were little campfires and stuff going on. And he took us to the metro, and we got on and we went to wherever it took us. Then we got on a bus, and it took us to Taksim Square, where Taksim Square is where all the buses go. And Taksim Square, it's like a Rodeo Drive in Hollywood, like the expensive stores, but it goes a mile up this one road. It was great. That's a different part of the story, but it was just a fabulous place. But then he said, in Turkish, he told the guy, make sure you get them on the right bus to go back. We were staying near the Grand Bazaar. And then when we crossed over to the Asian part, we were on a bus and we weren't sure where the heck we were going. And a guy there, once again, he told us how to get back over to Turkey from that side, So people are they're great everywhere.
Hmm.
And
Well, you were,
I'm gonna have to get going pretty soon here. Uh, let me see. Uh, yeah. So anyway, but if you have a few more questions, I know you probably do.
yeah, I do. I was going to ask you about working with John Milius and Red Dawn.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's that's the thing. Is to work with these guys that at the time I'm not a student of film,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't just working. And then now, in retrospect, to know, wow, Milius and De Palma and Scorsese and all those guys are all tight, like USC, uh, uh, George Lucas, and Coppola. And I auditioned for The Outsiders with
Mm-hmm.
Coppola, and just to have been in a room with him and asking me my life story and stuff, and just that to me, I love auditions because that to me feels like a job. Like I had some time with him. He was interested in what I had to say, and I was interested in looking at him and watching, just watching him, who he is as a director. But Amelia's, the Red Dawn, and now all these years later is like, wow. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it was great to work with him, because it's hard to. I don't really remember anything real specific other than just the way they treated me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
was just like it didn't treat me like I had a bit part, you know, because there are no extras in life or in films.
I got two more films I want to ask you about. One is Caddyshack 2. I had director Alan Arkish on here to talk about Rock and Roll High School and Get Crazy. He would not talk about Caddyshack 2. And he, he had nothing good to say about it. I was wondering what your experience was like on that film.
Well, I was just there for a few days,
Yeah.
so a lot of times with somebody like him, it has to do with the studio
Mhm.
and how they take it away from you and cut it the way they want to cut it, and cut out the scenes that once you're in it and that they can't get out of it. uh but it was great to work with, uh um uh, oh God,
Jackie Mason.
um well,
Jackie
Jackie
Mason.
Mason was really interesting, but Meriwether Post,
Hmm.
uh the wife of Dale Robertson, was it not Dale Robertson, who Cliff Robertson?
Okay.
She was the daughter. She was the she lived in Mar-a-Lago. That was their home.
Hmm.
Meriwether Post home was Mar-a-Lago when she was a kid. But just to work with somebody like her, that had that kind of fame and fortune as a child. But it was fun, man. Working. And then one of the producers on it, is how I got on it, was from Buckaroo Banzai, another movie you were going to ask me about. The
How,
Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai was one of the producers on it. That's how I got on to Caddyshack too.
yeah. And I was going to
Because he,
ask you
yeah,
lastly about Downsizing, which I saw in theaters with Matt Damon. And according to Wikipedia, it was your last credit on here, but I haven't gone on IMDb. But Downsizing, you were a part of that. That was an interesting little concept.
yeah, yeah, that was an interesting concept, and he's phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
He's just such a great guy, and spoke really good Spanish. His mother's a Spanish teacher.
Yeah.
Uh, and then to work with, I can't remember her name, Hong, that was up for an Academy Award, in The Whale,
With the whale. Yep.
the Vietnamese actress.
Yep.
Yeah, she was that, and I was just there for a couple of days, and it was just, it's just great to work with great filmmakers and great projects like that are just, it's just a great feeling. to be part of something like that.
Well, before we let you go, please plug your documentary because I know you wanted to talk
Yeah,
about that, and I I would like you to give a little tiny bit of detail on that. What's it called?
it's called Pepe Serna, Life is Art, and
Mm-hmm.
it premieres February 21st.
Mm-hmm.
And then my book has the same title, and it's my art, my philosophy behind the scenes in Hollywood for 54 years and 76 years as an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, when I think of it like that, it's like, wow, that's that's a lot,
Yeah.
you know. And it's and just getting it out there and showing, because what I really love is those workshops, to run workshops, because I love to get people to do things that they had no idea they could do, and it happens in it within minutes sometimes, where they just go from A to Z and don't even know what they did. And I know myself, you know, I'll be 80 this year, and I'm like, you know, I still got the energy. I still work out. You know, I still, you know, have my biceps. So you have to keep, you know, you have to keep moving. And I've been moving my whole life. I've been on the move, and so I'm constantly doing. And I jump on my next project. I've done a couple of short films.
Mm-hmm.
That one of them was called Abuelo, and the other one is called Wish Upon. That's really great. But
Oh,
I'm
Wish Upon, I've heard of that one. Yes.
that's something else. That was a Disney thing. That
Mm-hmm.
was with the same name. This the concept. But another one I'm doing is Look in My Eyes. Is I'm a psychologist who works with children on the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
and other diseases as well. And so it's going to be really interesting. We started shooting already. I haven't shot any of my stuff yet, but now I go. So it's pepeserna.net to check out my website for everything's on there, for my documentary, my artwork, and the workshops. I have several things on there that you can log on to,
Mm-hmm.
and then Amazon, iTunes, which is Apple TV. I heard. I never have looked into. I don't have Apple TV, but that's the only one I don't have.
Do you
But anyway, so yeah, the February the 21st, and it's really interesting. Eva Longoria, Edward James Olmos, Cheech Marin, Luis Valdez, Gloria Calderon Kellett. Oh, my series With Love, it's on Amazon Prime, is still up. So check out the series. It's a great Latino family with LGBTQ storylines, and I'm the grandfather in it. And we didn't get picked up for a third season, but there's 5 the first season and 6, and they're really, really great actors, great stories. Gloria Calderon Kellett is the showrunner on that, and we did 2 seasons of that.
is Mr. Newton in it?
Yeah, he's always trying to butt in, but
Where can people get your book now?
pepeserna.net, my
Okay.
website, and go to books, and they can order it from there. And if you have some place to send it near the Canadian border, then you can come across and get it from a family member, or however you do your tricks to get your stuff from America. So you don't have to uh,
Yeah.
pay for your
Well, it was wonderful having you come on here today, and talk to me and celebrate, of course, 45 years of the jerk. Can you believe it's been 45 years?
Yeah, man, I've done so many now.
Yeah.
What is it? It's Scarface,
Yeah.
The Adventure of Buckaroo Banzai, and Sadat were all like 83, 84. So that's 40 years.
Yep.
And yeah, I just yeah, it's phenomenal how long ago and how they're still people are still watching them.
Yep. Yep. And of course, you're my 10th guest this year. You just won a free oven mitt.
Oh man, how lucky I am.
You'll notice I ducked out of frame there for a minute. Thought, I gotta grab this.
That's
You just
funny. That's
you just
great.
won a free oven mitt.
Wow. now now I'm gonna have to learn how to bake.
There you go. Pepe, it was so
Okay.
wonderful having you come
Well,
on here
thank you so
today.
much for having me on.
And Tommy Kovac of Splat from the Past recommended you and connected us. But before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
No, no, yeah, sure. I
Just
mean, not
state
sure.
your just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
To Greg Gilbert.
Yep, Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Hello, hey, my name is Pepe Serna. I'm listening to uh, Greg Gilbert on Phantom Paradise.
And
Be there or be square.
he's coming to a town near you with Mr. Newt Bong.
He is in a town near you. Don't look out your window.
Yes, they'll be hauling part of that church or whatever behind them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's still rolling down the freeway there on the 210.
There you go. Well, I know you want to enjoy the Grammys, so you enjoy your
Yes,
time with your wife. Congratulations on 55 years being together. That is absolutely awesome.
that is. Thank you very much, and adios to everybody in Canada. Toronto was one of the greatest cities I've ever been to, where I just didn't feel. I was only there for a few days, but it was a totally spiritual feeling, and my wife wasn't with me, but it just felt non-judgmental. A city that was non-judgmental. I don't know how true that is, but that's the vibe I got from it.
Oh, I'm trying to get moved there. I live in New Brunswick, Canada, and you want to talk about a backwards place. I want to get moved to Toronto. I love Toronto, so a lot of people
Oh,
here
you
don't
make that
understand.
happen.
I'm
It's
going to try to make
manifested.
that happen at some point. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, God bless
Okay.
you. Thank you
You
so
too.
much. You
Bye
take
bye.
care. Bye bye.